She's a fashion blogger, model, and entrepreneur.
She's amazing.
The latest tips on fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, and her lifestyle. And now, here's the founder and creator of Not Basic Blonde, Olasha.
Hi, Nicole. I'm so honored to have you on my podcast. How are you today?
Great to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you too. I've been a huge fan of your brand and for so many years. So we would like to know more about you and how did you become a fashion icon? How did you start your entrepreneurship journey?
Well, a lot of things were hard work and, some things were luck along the way. But I did go to design school. I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and I went to a school in Paris, a couture school in Paris. And, then I came to New York to, try my luck in the big city. And, I had several jobs doing, various things. One job I had was doing raincoats. It was a lot of fun. I loved designing raincoats. And eventually I got a job for a dress company, which was more my passion to do dresses. And I was there for several years. And then the company was a division of a big company, and it had some financial woes. So the gentleman who was my boss at the time and I decided to leave and start our own venture at that time. And so we left, and that's when we started the Nicole Miller brand. And so, we started on very little funding. I've always been sort of like, independent, free spirit. So I'm always trying to, innovate and try new things and whatever. And so we started that business on very little money. But the first year I had this, I have to say, this magical dress, which went into the stores and everybody loved and everybody bought it. So we sold thousands of them. And I have to say, literally, that dress made enough money for the business to go on. And, it's funny about that dress. People still copy that dress today. It's crazy. They still make it. I go, wait a minute, that's my dress from the 80s.
You do have really beautiful dresses. I love them too. But you don't just have an apparel, you also have like decor and home line furniture as well. What were ideas and inspiration behind it?
Well, eventually, like I said, some opportunities came to me and some opportunities we went out and found. But, obviously when we had a clothing line, and then we didn't have runway shows for like the first, several years. And then in like 1990, we decided to have a runway show. So when you have a runway show, you need things like shoes and handbags and eyewear and accessories and all those things. So that's when we started to look into, getting licensing, because we couldn't really do those things ourselves. So we found a licensing partner to do shoes and one for jewelry and various things. And so that's how I started, initially to start out with licensing other products. And initially it was all products that related to clothing. But as time goes on, things changed. And then somebody said, oh, how about a perfume? And then how about a rosé? Now we have a rosé. And then, oh, you'd be great for home. We'll do some bedding, we'll do some sheets. And now we have rugs. So it just one thing after another, it just, one thing kind of led on to the next thing. And it just catapulted itself, into, like a huge licensing business.
That's incredible. And also, what were your message behind the brand when you were creating the brand? Who was your kind of target audience, or who was the perfect lady you were kind of creating your design for? Because, every brand has kind of the perfect avatar that you kind of create your designs or apparel for. So who was yours?
Well, I always kind of based everything on myself because I was always the uptown, downtown girl. I lived downtown, and then I had a lot of friends that were on the Upper East Side. So I would be going to downtown, like art events, and then Upper East Side, like charity fancy balls. And I would always be doing both. So I always say, my brand was always being about moving in like different circles, being able to, float from one area to the other. And it also always had like kind of a good girl, bad girl aspect to it. So I'd always do, like the pretty dress with the tough leather jacket, or I would do the feminine with like a masculine touch. And so that's kind of been my signature throughout. And I think it's still very much the signature of the brand.
Wow, that's amazing. How do you identify potential business opportunities or gaps in the market, and what strategies do you use to evaluate potential success for a business idea?
Well, I have to say, in a creative business like clothing, there's no kind of systems or formula. But I think you have to just always be aware, and you have to be always aware of what's going on and trends and what's happening, what's not happening. And the thing is, you have to be always prepared not to get into a rut, because the older you get, you kind of get into these ruts like that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I did that before. It doesn't work. But just because it didn't work last year or the year before or the year before that doesn't mean it's not going to work next year. So I always try to be like open-minded. I try to rely on my younger staff here because they're much younger than me. And I have to really like listen to their opinions. And sometimes I go, no, it's never going to work. And they go, yes, yes, yes. And sometimes they're right, sometimes I'm right, but I have to be open-minded all the time, and I have to be able to sort of see those opportunities and see those cracks and see those things that are missing. And that's why I think we've been in business so long and had this business successful for so long, because I feel like I don't put blinders on. I stay open-minded, and I try to move forward, and I try to be just aware, and I try to stay on top of the music scene and culture and what's going on around the world. And so I try to always be like in the present and not in the past.
That's incredible, actually. And it applies to any industry to be open-minded and flexible and adapt to the latest and greatest trends and try out new things like you guys are doing. And also apparel business, it's very saturated, and stay kind of ahead of the game, it's hard because there is so many brands, so many clothes, but you guys are still stand out because the brand is iconic.
Well, I feel like today, in this age of influencers and whatever, and the licensing, so many people just slap their name on clothing, and they're not the designers. I've always been very involved in the designing, but all these people, they don't have design experience. They didn't go to design school. Maybe they have good style, and there's something to be said for having good style. But I see people using like horrible fabrics that I would never use, and they don't understand materials, and clearly somebody else is making the clothes for them. So and not that some people are not doing a good job. I'm sure some are, but I think to have value, I think people should really want something behind the brand that they're buying, some substance.
Absolutely. And also there are not many brands that are actually made in US. Most of them are outsourced, or most of them just like drop shipping and, like you said, slapping their label on the product, which are not even bought. They probably just buy it wholesale and just putting their own label on it. But actually designing your own product and doing it in US, it's definitely brings a different value of the product.
Yeah, and it's a challenge because it's a lot more experimentation. There's a lot more trial and error, rather than you're just, doing a t-shirt or a pair of jeans. But, we're doing these, draped dresses and elaborately made dresses, and, things that are beaded, and everything is hand drawn. So there's a lot that goes into our product.
That's amazing. How do you approach risk taken as an How do you approach risk taken as an entrepreneur, and what factors do you consider when deciding whether to take risk or play it safe?
Well, there's sometimes some things I like to take risks on and some things I don't. And like one thing I don't like to take risks on are inventory, because one of the worst things to do is to have all your profit be sitting in fabric in the warehouse or hanging dresses. So that's where I don't like to take risks. But I do like to take risks in experimentation, like a new silhouette, or a new fabrication, or something that's technologically innovative, something that's new on the horizon. So I like to take a lot of risks with new things and tryouts, but I don't like to take risks with quantity. And I feel like over the years, a lot of times we would be selling something really well, and then we would buy more fabric, and before you know it stopped selling, and then we're sitting with the fabric. So I think that's one place where I don't want to be taking chances. But on the other hand, I mean, I've done some crazy things. Like one time, everybody was wearing maxi dresses, and I said, I'm so sick of this. And I went and I took everything in the showroom and I chopped like a foot off it, because like back in the 80s, everybody was wearing like close to mid calf, and it all of a sudden looked very dowdy to me. And I took it back to the sewers and I said, cut off all these dresses. And you know what? All of a sudden the business went wild because everybody was sick of those dowdy dresses. Everybody was sick of that kind of like too much fabric and that look, which looked good in the beginning, but it just was time for a change. So sometimes I've had this, radical change idea that has been very successful for me.
And you also are not afraid to implement your idea, because sometimes so many entrepreneurs have the idea, but they're so hesitant to actually implement it, because what if it's not going to go well? But you took a risk and you did it, and it actually succeeded.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, I was going to gamble, but I was going to make like 1,000. I would start with 300, not 1,000, So you just have to sort of know, where to put your gambles and how much to gamble.
Yeah.
I guess it's like just going to Las Vegas, right?
Yeah. And in apparel business, do you decide which items go on sale and what sale, or actually the stores decide for this kind of decision?
We don't have anything to do with that.
Oh, I see.
We don't really have anything to do with that. And, sometimes we fight with stores because it'll still be on our website, and they mark it down after like 3 weeks or something. And you go, well, wait, we're still selling at regular price. You can't mark it down.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, well, we always mark everything down after like so many weeks. So we're always fighting with stores over that. It's just not, they just like to turn everything over.
How do you feel?
So it's not good.
Yeah. How did it feel for you the first time? Which store did you make a contract? I mean, did you sign a contract with the Nicole Miller brand? It appeared in which store first?
We appeared in a lot of stores. The first season we were, Neiman Marcus, Saks, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, all of those right off the bat. First season, we had all the big stores. And Bergdorf.
Wow.
And Bergdorf Goodman too. We had everybody the first season.
Was it hard for you to score that, or how did you approach the stores? Because to sell your product,
I was very lucky because I was leaving that other business, the other business that was having the financial problems. So we at least had a connection to most of the buyers. Like we knew them, they were our friends, and so we were like, say we started this new business and blah blah blah. And would you be interested in coming to take a look? So they all came down right away. So it wasn't like not getting them on the phone. So we were lucky that we had roots to grow from, because we had known these people in the past. So it wasn't like I was cold calling, but in the previous business, it was a little more difficult to get things rolling. But then I built that over time. So I had my relationships.
So always building relationships is a key to successful business anywhere. It can apply to any field.
It's true. It's true. The sad thing that happens is people don't stay there forever. So you could be doing really well and the buyer loves you and everything's great. And then, she decides to go get married and have a baby, and she leaves her job, or she takes a break or whatever. And then the next person comes in, they go, well, I don't like your stuff so much. When the first person did, you're like, come on, we're doing really well with it. So it is personalities, but those personalities don't always stay there. So, you're always having to deal with change. That's the thing. Nothing ever stays the same. So you're dealing with change, and you have to change with the times and change with the personnel and, change with all the people, and you have to adjust all the time. So nothing ever stays the same all the time.
So true, because if we would stay at the same point at the same time all the time, we wouldn't grow, and going through changes actually helps us to grow and become better and better.
And otherwise we'd be boring, right?
Yeah. How did you manage and overcome failures and setbacks in your entrepreneurship journey?
Oh, well, I have to say, I mean, I'm basically talking to you from a creative standpoint, but I have to say I've been very, very resourceful. Because when I was talking about like getting stuck with inventory, and so there was one time we had too much fabric of this print. So I decided to pleat it because everything looks better pleated. So I made a pleated skirt, I made it with a sweater, and that was a home run. It sold like crazy. And I used up all my fabric and I had to buy more because everybody wanted my pleated skirt. So, so anyway, but I mean, I always find there's a way when there's a problem that you can fix it. And just during COVID, um, we started making masks because we weren't really supposed to work, but we were making masks. So I went through like a lot of my old fabric inventory and made masks. So I made cotton masks, I made silk masks. Actually, the silk masks were quite nice. And you know, that just kept us busy. And then meanwhile, we were still trying to design and make new collections, but the whole mask business was really, you know, it brought in money, brought in cash. It was like huge. We were selling like hundreds of them to stores and on our website. So, you know, that was one thing during COVID that we found like an opportunity.
Wow, you're incredible. You always create great opportunities from any situation. You always find a way. That's what real entrepreneurs do.
Well, yeah, yeah, I always feel I'm very good at fixing things.
Yeah, like solver. How do you stay motivated, especially during challenging times?
Well, I mean, I think challenging times are more motivating because you're really under pressure. You're under pressure and you're under stress. And sometimes when you're under the gun like that, that's more inspiring and more gives you more energy because, you know, you're really under pressure. So it's similar to like whenever I would do a fashion show, like fashion show pressure was always so you'd end up making more things and you'd be more creative because you're not that you would use it all, but you're always like pushing your brain to another level. So I think when there's bad times, it's always pushing you to work harder, try harder, figure something out. And I feel like that's how, you know, like I was talking about the pleated skirt and the inventory. And whenever there's a problem like that, you have to find a way. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business.
So true. And I also walked in fashion shows as a model before, and now I attended as press media. But it's so much pressure and so much work goes into fashion shows. It's crazy because it's hours and hours of work prior to the show. And when the show actually comes, it's only like a few minutes, but the amount of work goes into it like a month.
I know, for like a 10-15 minute show, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing, the biggest problem always with fashion shows is shoes. It's always shoes.
Yeah.
Either they don't show up on time, you don't have the right sizes, or they made them, you know, they're prototypes, so they have wood heels and they break. So
Mhm.
I've had broken heels on the runway. I've like wrong size on the runway. I've had the shoes not show up. I've had the shoes show up at the last minute, be delivered to the runway from the airport. I
Oh,
mean, so you know, I can only do so much. I can fix the clothes, I can fix the jewelry, I can take care of all that. But the shoes, sometimes that gets to be like out of your hands is the shoes. And that's the one you end up pulling your hair out the most is over the shoes.
so true. And I've seen so many times videos and just in person too, that when models walk on runway, it's just they either twist their leg.
They fall.
Yeah.
Or clearly the shoes don't fit. Clearly the shoes are too big or their heels are too high or
Yeah.
they're too small and they're clearly in pain. But yeah, it's really the shoes are always the biggest issue.
What qualities do you think helped you to become so successful?
Well, I feel it's like hard to knock me down. I'm very resilient and I'm just very like, I always like bounce back. Something doesn't work out, then okay, well, you know, then I'll do this. You know, if that didn't work, I'll try this. And I feel like also my open-mindedness, which I touched on before. And, you know, try to just always have a positive outlook and always be moving forward, not backwards. And, I'm not going to sit back and mope about it. I'm just going to keep trying something different until something works.
I love that because you said resilient, and so many people get stressed out and get kind of lost in really situations under pressure. And you said, it's
Right.
okay, I just move in different direction. I just find a different way. It's just like the best advice.
It's funny because I just remember sometimes during fashion shows, my assistants would get really stressed out over something. And I would just go, it's going to work itself out. It's going to work itself out. And just by tomorrow, something will happen. We'll figure it out. And, it was just, there's a million crazy stories about how things didn't happen. And then we managed to find a way. That's what I do. I delegate out the stress. I go, you handle the stress.
That's the best, because sometimes entrepreneurs don't even do that. They take it all on themselves and they think no one can manage it better than they do. But actually the talent.
Well, no, ultimately I'm responsible, but I feel like, if you split it up and okay, you work on this, you work on that, you work on this, and then, but I mean, believe me, I've had many sleepless nights over these things. And then somehow at some point it just always clears up and works itself out.
I guess it's longer and longer you have a brand, you know more about it, and you kind of become more familiar with it. You can actually navigate it better and delegate it. But at first, when you start at the beginning, it's always harder.
Yeah.
And what's
Yeah.
next for Nicole Miller brand? What are you guys having? Any creative ideas?
Yes. Yeah, we're doing a very expensive line, higher price things, more like around $1,000. Most of my line was always around like 400, 300, 400, some things a little more. But now we're doing this very small limited collection. It's going to be debut in September, and the dresses will all be around $1,000 or more, few less, but around that price point. So I'm very excited about that.
And what was your inspiration behind it?
Well, the inspiration was my trip to Palm Springs. I went to all the modernism shows in Palm Springs.
Wow, that's incredible.
And it was all that the kind of 1950s homes and furniture and decor and everything. And it's funny, I had a bunch of vintage dresses that I wore, and then I came back and I thought, I'm going to make all this stuff beaded now.
Wow, that's exciting. And for your actual regular collections, what always inspires you, and how do you find creative ideas all the time?
Well, I feel like I look at everything, and then like usually what happens is something hits me like that. Like I'll be doing research and research and research, and then at some point I kind of go, that's it. That's it. That's what I'm going to go with. And I have some crazy idea, and then I go with it. And sometimes it's been a place I traveled. It's something I found in research. It's different ways. I find out different things. And the other thing that I have going on is we have a new perfume that just launched.
Oh wow!
And yeah, and one is called Nectar de Pêche, which I like because I'm half French and my mother's French, so I like to use a lot of French words and things. And I have one that's like a peach nectar, which is absolutely fantastic smelling.
Is it out or it's coming out?
Yeah, it's just coming out now. It's a collection of 4 different ones. But anyway, so that's been exciting. And we just had a big influencer lunch in Montauk at this place called Bounce Beach in Montauk. And we had about like 30 different girls come, and we had a beautiful lunch. It was a gorgeous day.
One of my friends, Caroline, she was there too. She was on my podcast as well before.
Oh, she was. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, great. Yeah, it was a beautiful bunch of girls. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah, I seen the event. It was pretty.
Yeah, it was great.
And also, any advice would you give to women who are trying to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's very important that they are an individual, and it's very important that they don't try to get their idea from something else because there's too much of the same thing everywhere. So I think you have to have an identity, a clear identity, and be true to yourself and be your own advocate because nobody else is going to advocate for you except yourself. So I think you have to be like unique and individual and have a clear focus point of view. And that's what's going to make you successful.
I love that. And that it's actually what is my brand about? It's about be yourself, be unique, never basic. And that's what I always keep, not basic blonde, you know.
Oh, right. Perfect. Don't be basic. Don't be basic.
Yeah. And where can our listeners find you, your social handles, all your information?
Yeah, it's the Instagram is Nicole Miller NYC, and we have TikTok also, and Facebook. We have all those things, but Nicole Miller NYC.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's such an honor to have you as my guest. Thank you.
Oh,
I'm like thrilled because I know your brand for many years and it's an iconic brand, but actually having someone iconic behind the brand, it's even, I'm thrilled by your personality and just your advice, just incredible.
well, thank you. Thank you. It's really great. I hope we get to meet in person someday.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.